favorite new Vulcan, actually old Vulcan because he's older than he was in Enterprise. Ambassador Saval himself, Gary Graham. Yeah. And one of the most dangerous and loveliest Starfleet captains we've ever met, Sonia Alexander, Kate Burning. Well, that's interesting that you bring that up. That was a question that I was going to ask. Do you want to show the 5 minutes first?
Yeah.
And wait for Christian?
Yeah, let's do that.
Do we have an audio level? Okay.
Hey, I'm also going to apologize because we were going to show the full 20-minute prelude to Axanar off of YouTube, but the internet here sucks. So we can't. So we're going to show you. How many people have seen Prelude? Raise your hand. Yeah! How many people have not seen Prelude? Raise your hand. Okay, you guys go home and watch the whole thing tonight, okay? But we're going to show you the trailer. We did this trailer back in May, so some of the special effects you'll notice are not in, but it gives you the taste of everything. So hit it, Maestro. Do we have lights? Can we turn off the lights?
We are facing an enemy that is consumed and committed to our total destruction. An enemy that demands to be fought. And we will fight. But I say to you, our greatest challenge is not the might of a Klingon fleet. The greatest challenge laying before us is to do what must be done without undoing the dream of the Federation.
His first speech to the Federation Council was incredible. There were 40,000 people in Archer Arena. The old man himself was there, and they all wanted one thing: hope.
The first goal was to create a class of ship that could spring Starfleet back into action, back into battle. We had to leapfrog Klingon technology. We had over a dozen member worlds working on it. It was the first pure warship that Starfleet had ever built.
Well, that was Ramirez's first roll of the dice. And they landed exactly the way we wanted them to, the way we needed them to. At that point, about the only thing we were doing that impressed the Klingons was dying well.
It wasn't until the formation of the Federation that the High Council began to take Earth seriously. Before then, the incidents with Captain Archer were dismissed as a nuisance. And even after the Federation was formed, many on the High Council thought it as a mere political alliance. Starfleet was never seen as a match for the Imperial Navy. Certainly not one that would impede the growth of the Empire.
The bad blood between the humans and the Klingons meant that the job of preventing war and leading the peace delegations fell to Vulcan. Regrettably, we failed.
Goddamn Inverness 5. Day after day, it was the same thing. I get called in to support some kind of counterattack. By the time I got into orbit, my orders had been changed. Attack called off. Battle was already over. We'd pull out of warp into a junkyard.
Karn. Vulcan intelligence is, if I may say, unparalleled, but even for us, he was a mystery.
After the Battle of Cygnus 3, our ship captains finally started giving the Federation its due as a worthy adversary. But in the 2 years we wasted in our arrogant belief we were superior to the Federation, we had lost the advantage. With the launch of their newer ships and the experience their commanders had gained, our progress was slowed. Now the D7 would be needed to break the back of Starfleet. The D7 was the ultimate expression of the Klingon warship, technologically superior to anything in the quadrant. We had 3 shipyards across the Klingon Empire building her. We would launch her and devastate the Federation fleet.
Axanar was the bloodiest conflict in the Federation's short history. We didn't sign up to be warriors. That's not what Starfleet's about. We proved that we could do what we needed to do to defend the Federation. I'm proud of everyone who I served with, especially those that didn't make it back.
For myself, I have but one fear. Destroying the dream of the Federation. Compared to such a loss, I do not fear the Klingon Empire.
So I guess to start this out, Alec, what is Star Trek Axanar and why did you decide to do it?
Axanar is the first independent Star Trek film. And we don't use the F word at Axanar, which is fan film. Because fan film is something made by fans. And yeah, we're fans. I know Richard's a big fan of Star Trek, but when you have a professional crew and professional actors in front, and everyone on the set is a professional who you got to, in the case of Prelude to Axanar, work mostly for free for a weekend because they love, making films. That's not a fan film. That's a professional production. And if you talk to any of our wonderful actors, I think they'll tell you that it was as good as most sets that they've been on, professional or otherwise. So we call it an independent Star Trek film. And our goal is to make something that's every bit as good or better than some of the than what's coming out of the studios these days. And so that's what Axanar is. It's the short film Prelude to Axanar, which you have either seen or you're going to go home and watch tonight, and then go to our Kickstarter and donate. Is meant as proof of concept and to show you what we can do. And we are in pre-production right now on the full feature film. Christian and I are heavy in revisions. There's Christian, he finally showed up. Everyone say hi to Christian.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I guess, Christian, talk about how did you and Alec come to collaborate on this? And what was the process of writing together? And I know Christian has done a wonderful comic called The Red Star that is sort of an alternate military history of a Russia that no longer exists. So you had already an interest in this kind of, this is sort of a military history of the Star Trek universe that we have not heard about, and you have, could you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, Alec really, really wanted to demonstrate to CBS specifically, and to anyone in the industry, that he could produce not just science fiction, but Star Trek. He really wanted to take his love for that show that had been in him since he was 6 years old, watching the show in its original airing, not in syndication. And
Boy, that makes me sound old.
It makes you sound wise, Gandalf the Grey.
You were only 6.
I was only 6.
Only 6, most of us, listen, we all have that, right? Whether it's Star Trek in the original run or Star Wars at during the original screening. I was lucky enough to be at the Chinese that morning. And so we all have that, right? That whether it be Harry Potter or something else, there's this awakening event that happens. And for Alec, it was Star Trek. So I was happy when he came to me and said, can you help me show them I can do this?
Yeah. And Christian was the only person I approached to direct this. Because we've been good friends for a long time, and we've been talking since 2001. How are we going to work together? We need to work together. We need to do something. And so, happy to have it.
One of the things that you guys did after you'd written the script and decided to make the movie was obviously the big component of this were the actors. Now, you have 3 very esteemed actors that all have tremendous ties to science fiction, you guys all know. But how did somebody like, Kate Vernon, one of the final 5, how did you find yourself jumping franchises and throwing in with these 2 ruffians?
Well, I was asked. No, Alec
Alec and Christian met me at a convention a few years ago, and unbeknownst to me, when they... Can I lift this up? Oh, I hit myself. Unbeknownst to me, when they walked away, they said, we need to write something to include Kate. And as an actor, I think that's one of the biggest compliments. Because, you know, something in me just sparked their imagination, and then they incorporated this character for me that they wrote into this incredible project called Axanar, which I'm thrilled to be a part of, and thrilled to be now a part of the Star Trek franchise. I was just talking to Jamie Bamber, and he goes, why aren't you around here where they're signing? And I said, oh, I'm over with the Axanar booth, the Star Trek booth. And he went, you jumped ship? And it's like, I've got one foot in Battlestar always, and one foot now, which I'm very grateful for in Star Trek. So I'm just thrilled to be a part of this, and can't wait to start filming.
Well, Gary, one of the things I think that gives Axanar legitimacy as far as being real Star Trek, if an independent project can be a real Star Trek, is that you're playing the same character that your indelible performance is Soval in Enterprise. You're recreating that performance here. Now, what was that like for you, and how did you feel about that, and how do you feel about coming back and playing Soval again?
Well, I'm delighted to carry on Soval. I wasn't ready to part with the old bastard, and the notion of playing a character on Enterprise, I think I was 170 years old or something like that. I don't know. And this is 80 years plus, so that's 250 years. And the notion of coming back a little older and wiser was fascinating to me. And then I had not really done my homework, so I didn't really know about the Battle of Axanar. But Alec approached me and says that Hatch is playing a Klingon, so I said, I'm in. That's all really I needed to know. You got Tony Ty and Hatch is a Klingon. I'm in. I'm down, sure. And then there was the large U-Haul trailer full of money, cash, backed up to my house, cash.
It's just alcohol that we have to ply in with.
It's true. There's no cash. It's just a lot of alcohol. But it was delightful to climb into that character again and do it. And it was the prelude. I haven't seen the script. It could be a piece of crap. I don't know. But the original for the prelude was so well written, and plus they let me rewrite a couple of my lines. So I was all in. It was great fun.
I just gotta say, great geek moment. I think all of us as Star Trek fans, because I always say, look, I'm just like you guys. I'm just making a movie about it. But it is so cool to be standing on set, watching Gary in his full Vulcan makeup, doing Soval, and reading words that you have written specifically for him. It is so much. I mean, I'm a geek. It's like total nerdgasm.
Well, that sort of brings me to Richard Hatch, who has a long association with science fiction, both in the original Battlestar Galactica and the new Battlestar Galactica. And also, you've also been very active in fan circles for a long time. You've always come to conventions, and you've been very generous with your time to fans such as you here in the room. But I'm curious, you got to play, you were in full prosthetics, for the very first time. I mean, Zarek was not, he was a human. Apollo was, I don't know if you call Apollo a human if he came from the 13 colonies, but let's say he is. But now this time you're playing an old grizzled veteran of the wars, and you're in a full prosthesis. And what's that like for you?
First of all, yeah. Oh,
no, go
did you
ahead.
finish? Okay. First of all, I just want to take this opportunity to say how pissed off I am that they brought Gary Graham on this goddamn shoot. You promised me if I took Karn that he would never, ever show his face on the set.
Well, he shot on a different day than you.
Anyway, real quick, I just wanted to say that, number one, just what Alex said here, it's a new day in filmmaking, it's a new day in the industry. Fan films have grown amazing. The level of expertise, the quality of them,
They're bringing more and more professional actors on there. And you know, when you say fans, professionals, a lot of fans are professionals. And if they weren't, they've become professionals. But I think what's happening with Alec in this production is they've gone to another level that I didn't believe was possible. I read the script and I thought, where are they going to get the $40–50 million to shoot this action war? You know, I thought, what are they going to do? Is it going to just kind of be a what you call a fourscore, a bunch of characters, talking heads? They can't have much really action and stuff in it. But when I saw the prelude, even the little 5-minute trailer, which if you like this, you really got to go see the 21-minute version. And this is a just so you know, it's a 21-minute documentary style intro. The movie is a movie. It's different. It's not going to be a documentary. But I couldn't believe that he came to me to play this Klingon. And we had a long conversation about that. You know, the question was this something that I could do? Is this something that I felt connected to? And I have to say, the more I learned about Karn, the more I connected to him, because so often I think we've seen Klingons played in many different ways. And we've obviously seen the more warlike, you know, kind of Neanderthal approach to playing a Klingon. And certainly there's all levels, many different ways to play a Klingon. But we talked about, like, Last of the Samurai, Kutsumoto. We talked about, you know, my thought was any civilization that created the technology that the Klingons did would be a very sophisticated technology society, civilization. And so I wanted to bring some new elements to that, bring a more sophisticated, more refined, but at the same time, there is the warrior code. You know, anybody that's ever been part or loved movies that deals with civilizations that were, you know, very much in a sense military oriented. There's a code. There's a warrior code, and it's an honor code. And the samurai really, I love Last of the Samurai because it really touches upon what that warrior code is. And I thought, you know, I love all of these elements of what the Klingons are. And the truth was, how can I maybe bring some deeper elements to it? How can I bring some insights into that character? Very much the way I think Alec and Chris are not just replicating Star Trek. They're taking an idea, an area of, I believe, Star Trek canon that has not been explored. They're obviously going in there and creatively, and you know, filling in some of those moments like all authors and creators do. But they're going into a world that hasn't really been seen. And I think they're bringing a whole new energy and a whole new insight into Star Trek, and I'm excited because it's, again, we're not just trying to be as good as some show. We're trying to find a way to create this very powerful drama and to, you know, infuse this world with a new energy. And so I was excited to be part of that, and I love the fact that they were open and collaborative, very collaborative in terms of how we want to go at our characters, how we want to develop them, how we can build them. And as we talked about, how can we add some deeper insights, some deeper levels to these characters? So I'm really excited to be playing it. And I have to say one last thing. I wanted to learn Klingon. Let me tell you, that's not an easy language. But I didn't get the translations early enough. And part of the reason was because I wanted to get into the rhythm and the energy of the Klingon language to help that influence the English part, because I think that should carry over in some way, and obviously I would like to do some parts of it in Klingon. But we finally got that, and I'm on the way now. I took my first Klingon lesson. That's why my voices have gone. Again, you have to use your tongue in positions I've never thought imaginably possible. It's not an easy thing. But anyway, I'm looking forward to it. I look at Karn like Shakespeare and Hamlet. It's one of those characters that I feel like I've just begun to climb into. So it's going to be an evolution, and I think you'll see that as we start to film the movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's great.
Yeah. And the one thing that's really important to talk about with Karn, I'll just say, is I had this conversation with some fans, I think it was yesterday or this week. Karn's not the bad guy. We feel, Christian and I feel very strongly about this, and from the beginning, we've told Richard, that I was very impacted when I was young, when I saw Midway, the movie, and you saw Admiral Yamamoto, the Japanese architect of Pearl Harbor, and played by Toshiro Mifune, the legend of the Japanese cinema. And there was such nobility in that character. You never watch Midway and think this is the bad guy. You never think he's evil. You see a man who's representing his country, and that's what Karn is. Christian, you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. It's very exciting it's been incredibly exciting to see what's possible with these actors and with Alec and the way that this has been structured, and that philosophy allows us to take the Klingons in places they haven't gone before. And you have to. What do we have that the studios, what do we have that can differentiate us from all the work that's going online today? And you have to prove to the community that you know what Star Trek is, that you love Trek, and that you can bring them an experience that reminds them of what their love is for Trek. And that's where all this comes from for me with Karn. And yes, he will be speaking some awesome Klingon. We're talking about some great ways to get that Klingon in there. And that's all I have to say about that.
Christian, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I mean, as a writer, one of the things, Prelude to Axanar, which you can watch the whole 21 minutes on YouTube now, was a proof of concept it was a trial run for the team to make a feature film. Now, what I thought was really interesting about how you directed it was the Prelude to Axanar is like a History Channel special from the future. That's going back and looking at this battle through the eyes of the actual participants. But when you were directing, you were sitting across as if you were the interviewer, and you were almost in character along with your actors, who were also in character, and you were asking them as if you were in the 23rd century, looking back at the Battle of Axanar. Could you talk a little bit? I thought that was watching you guys work together was fascinating, because I've been on sets, I've been on Lord of the Rings, I did DVDs for Bryan Singer. I mean, I've never seen a director work the way you did with your actors, and I thought it was fascinating.
Thank you very much. When I was introduced to directing, I come from art department. I'd worked for George Lucas, Peter Jackson, Tim Burton. So I come to directing from art department, like those guys did. And so when I was encouraged by some amazing world-class directors to try directing, I came back to the States and from New Zealand and spoke to my friends who were in the industry and said, okay, I've never directed live action before. What do I do? And my great friend Jennifer Werberly, producer, said, one of the director's main jobs, and this is overlooked, there are camera directors and there are art department directors. Your father was a professional actor. My father got his pension from the Screen Actors Guild, was on every 70s show you can name. And so I grew up around actors, New York stage guy. So she said, you, from your background, work with the actor. Make sure that actor knows they're being taken care of. Because you know what, the set can be a whirlwind of technology. The crews and the grips and the lights and the junk is all flying around. Who's there for the actor? Who's there to make sure that their focus is maintained, that they're hydrated, that their makeup is taken? So this was a way for me to direct. And also, we were doing this interview style thing. And there is a great show that you should all see called World at War. The BBC did the definitive World War II documentary. The History Channel wouldn't exist without the BBC's World at War. Amazing miniseries. And this was something where, if you're gonna have these people speaking about these events and give them the weight necessary to pull off the idea that these were real events we're talking about, you had to have the interviewer there. It's a funny story. I was a little nervous about it, working with these amazing actors. And so they're all going to be in costume, and I'm going to be sitting there talking to them in character, as if I am from Memory Alpha. So I went out and bought this Hugo Boss suit. I had this idea that I was going to sit in this I was like, what looks like a Federation suit? I went out, Hugo Boss, bought a suit, and realized quickly that this beautiful suit was going to get torn up on a set. With everything a director has to do, you don't just sit in the chair and talk to them. You're running around, you're fielding 1,000 different questions, and you have to make a million decisions. So it's like, I didn't wear the suit ultimately. I just wore black t-shirt.
The Richard Hatch look.
The Richard Hatch look. But that's the funniest. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful to connect with them, to give them another human being to give weight to these events.
Well, I think, how did that work? Because Kate, what was it like with your director sitting in front of you, throwing you these questions? What I thought was, I edited Axanar. I found your performance in particular quite amazing, because you as an actor are brilliant. In like, they would do a line, and then Christian, you would ask for a different line reading, and you gave him like different line readings. And as an editor, when you get an actor that gives you like not just sort of different, but specific choices, it was a joy cutting up what you did. I'm sorry I had to cut it up, but it was amazing because we were able to really get, because you as Sonia Alexander were, it was a different energy. All three of you were doing very different things. And I thought it was really interesting the way you and Christian would work, and then you're able to, I mean, clearly you have to have great training to be able to do what you did, and it was really interesting to watch.
Thank you. Thank you for all of that.
It's true. Hey.
I really appreciate that. It's really nice, because I walk away going, oh, did I do it all right? Did I answer what they needed from me? I loved working with Christian, and in my mind, I don't think about how I work, but to try to answer your question, I knew Chris was my director, but I'm not out of my head thinking, oh, there's my director reading me questions. I'm in the moment of my character, and I'm listening to my interviewer ask me those questions. So, not that I consciously put Chris in the scene with me, but he was very much in the scene with me. Just intuitively, I anchored the two of us in my world, and fully trusted Chris. I mean, Chris asked me, what can I do for you? What do you need from me? And I can't even remember my answer, but it was probably just being really present with me, and he was fully, completely, and.
I understand he was also naked during that time. Is that, or was it just? Is there any truth to that? I don't know.
Well, there were margaritas.
Only from the waist up.
Bring that up. That was all edited out. That's the stuff you edited out.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, it's really this set that we were on. I mean, I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that I knew the integrity that these two men were talking about, and I trusted that integrity. And then when I came onto the set, it was so exciting, because this set was moving beautifully. There were no glitches. If there was, something was worked, it was worked out. Whatever, that everybody in every single department was a professional, and it made my job very easy. I just sat in my chair. It was a chair, green screens, cameras, and Chris in a big open room, and that was it. I mean, it was the least warm and fuzzy environment to look at, but really the energy in that place was completely professional and supportive, and I didn't have a problem going right into my imaginary space of Captain Alexander. And you were an anchor, and solid and present, and I was able to play off of you, which I really like to do. I like working with actors and with directors, and a lot of times, you get actors that just want to say their lines and leave, or directors never communicate with you, and you are kind of out in the universe all by yourself, and I hate that. I hate what's happening to us as actors in that respect, because directors are dealing with technology and their buttons and their dials, and they're not really paying attention to the actors anymore. So
No.
This was an awesome experience.
There's a little bit of controversy about something that your character said, and I've gone back and forth with people on Twitter and on Facebook. There's a line of dialogue where your character is an incredibly capable, incredibly dangerous Starfleet captain that has provided a lot of problems for the Klingon Empire. Now, the Klingons have come up with a nickname for you, and you say what the nickname is, and many Star Trek fans have objected to the fact that the Klingons would use such perhaps a dishonorable phraseology. They call you the queen bitch whore of the Federation. And you say this, and you say it with a sort of wry smile, as if you take delight in that because you're so good that they're that scared of you. That's the way I always took it. That,
Thank you.
that you're a very dangerous, very capable Starfleet captain, and they don't like that. Now, we've seen Klingon captains. We've seen Lursa and B'Etor, who are also dangerous females, so you're sort of, but no one talks nicely about them. I don't think in behind closed doors, Captain Picard would have good things to say about Lursa and B'Etor. So do you think that that line was a little too much? Some fans have thought that the Klingons wouldn't say that, and your delivery of it is such that you take sort of, it's a badge of honor that your character wears.
Well, I think to be called out in such a profane way, it comes from a place of like I clearly mean something to these Klingons, and I am a force to be reckoned with, and I'm what is it? I'm never good at sayings, but I'm up there. I have their ire. I'm up there. You know what I mean? I'm a pain in their you know what, and I take pride in that because that's what Captain Alexander lives for. She has had the opportunity to step down several times or become a captain admiral. Thank you. And she doesn't want to do that. She wants to stay with her ship. She wants to fight, and she wants to win, and she wants to protect. You know, game on. I think that's how I'll sign my my photographs. You know, game on, because she's not afraid. She'll dive right in, and if it's pissing a few Klingons off, then
That's your job.
Nice.
I'm quite happy to be the cause of that.
Well, I think, now with Gary, there's a certain reluctant sadness to, I think, what you did as Soval, in that the Vulcans should have prevented this conflict from happening. That the 4 Years' War, and your performance really, there's, I think, a noble sadness and a regret that you brought to the character that I thought was great, that really worked, and it really, was that something that was intentional? Or were you aware of doing that? Were you trying to play off what Soval was during Enterprise, and then what would have happened? In Enterprise, you got to see the formation of the Federation. Now in Axanar, maybe the destruction of the Federation.
Thank you for that multi-layered, complex question, Rob. It's very logical that you would pose it to moi. Yeah, the reluctant sadness. Vulcans, in their eternal modesty, fancy themselves the only species capable of brokering a peace amongst any species. And that was I play it like that's my main sadness. It's not the thousands of people who are killed, but the fact that the Vulcan solution to peace failed. That's, anyway, I'm being only somewhat flip here. There's a little truth in there, and if anybody can discern which is the truth, please email me and we'll discuss it. But yeah, it was fun. It was. Hey, you know what? They give me the lines, I say them, I take a crack at making sense out of them, and that's about it.
Rob, we loved that moment in the editing room. That was...
No, we did. I mean, that was... Working with Christian in the editing room was fun because everything that the actors gave us made it... It really elevated what we were doing. Believe me, I worked on enough independent movies where it's like, oh my God, really? Do we have to go back into the editing room? But we couldn't wait to get back in because... And also it was juxtaposing... Again, I'll throw this back to you, Richard. I mean, the linchpin for us was going back to Karn. You know, we got to play off. It was. Wouldn't you say that the juxtaposition? We go to Karn, then come back to another actor, and then we also had Tony Todd and J.G. Hertzler, and the performances were also very different. Again, that reluctant Klingon, the Katsumoto idea, but then you kind of lose it. There's that great moment where you get back in and you're like, God, if we just, and you almost get angry and you sit up out of your chair, and it was this great, which we built to the whole movie, and then you had the brilliant idea of like, put in that last, Christian asked me to put in this shot, he didn't say exactly where it's a long shot of Richard Hatch with this sword that's not a bat'leth, it's like a sword that presumably he took off an enemy, right? Is that what you were? And it's a wide shot. He kind of moves the sword from side to side. You would ask me to put it, and then we put it at the end of that and it worked. It was great.
Ah, it was so nice to cap that moment because it's true. We've had this refined Klingon, but then to have that blood boil for a moment was just, I was like, thank you, gods of Kobol. I mean, whoa, I mean other gods. All of you.
But again, Richard, was that something, it was such a great moment. I mean, you really, was that something you were planning to do, or was it?
Well, I have to tell you, first of all, the script I was given, and then the script that we were actually doing were two different scripts. And so when we went through it, Chris was throwing out some lines at the end, right? And you know, whenever they tell you that they're gonna change all these lines and you don't have all the proper, you know, things you're supposed to say, it's you as the actor, because you've worked on the stuff you're gonna do, and it's a little bit of a freak out. And I was so glad. Instead of freaking out, I did what I did on Battlestar one time when they changed the whole scene at 10 o'clock at night that I was gonna shoot in the morning at 6 o'clock. I had to either suck it up and just go for it, or I would never have gotten there. And I just love the fact that you know, you would just basically throw out the line, I'd take it in, and bring it to life. And what was great was that you were saying the things that I actually wanted to say, the things that I actually wanted to get in there, and I was so glad, honestly, because I wanted to get more into how Karn felt. You know, go ahead.
You set a really bad precedent because now I just want to surprise you all the time.
Ooh.
No, it was wonderful. It was wonderful that you took it. It really would have been, if you had pushed back, I don't know what it would have done. So thank you for doing it.
No.
It was
my pleasure.
These performances, and it's true, Rob is absolutely right. When you see these performances, you're like, we could make 3 movies. This is just so, with all these different colors. And different experience levels, different ways of working. It was phenomenal to see. And it was great to, you know, I'll tell you, when Alec first came to me with this, one of the things that inspired me, and I have to say this because you are in the room, I saw World Enough in Time. And it's a beloved film, a Star Trek film, the world over. And Mark Zicree is here in the room. Hi. And I had to tell you, I was like, okay, he was like, Alec wanted to do something amazing, which we did, fortunately. But when I went to the fan films, I couldn't find anything that was really motivating me to think it could be done, technologically and process-wise. Could it really be done? Could you really actually do a fan film and have it compete the way Alec wanted it to? And then I saw World Enough in Time, and I realized it could be done. And I also want to point out the narrator of Prelude. When you see it tonight or today, it's really a fun 20 minutes. Please do go see it. Those of you who haven't, the narrator of Prelude to Axanar is in the room. Orion Akaba, he's here as well. Did a really nice job. I played him. I said, "Hey, Orion, here's the BBC's World at War, and you're Laurence Olivier. Go."
Super easy.
I think that Alec here, the mastermind, the producer behind this, he also played Captain Garth. Now, Alec has been diligently taking acting courses. He was not an actor by profession, yet he had to go toe-to-toe with these very experienced, very seasoned actors. And one of my favorite moments in Prelude is toward the end. It was an ad-lib that you had actually done about we didn't sign up to be warriors. And it was one of the things where I first saw that performance, and it wasn't in the script. And I knew it as, when I was cutting it, I'm like, we're gonna end with this sentiment, because this sentiment is very Roddenberry, it's very Star Trek-esque in its message. What was it like for you acting? And you've been preparing, and you know, for a lot of people out there who might want to be actors, was it hard? Was it intimidating? Were you scared? Would you rather be behind the camera?
Yeah, so Richard Hatch is my acting coach, and I've been studying with Richard now for about a year. Before that, I studied with Howard Fine, who's one of the top acting coaches in LA. And in the first scene study I did a couple of years ago with Howard Fine, because he knew me, he knew my background. I've been many things. An attorney, I was a professional volleyball coach, and an entrepreneur. I've started a number of businesses. So Howard Fine said to me after my first scene, he said, "Alec, you've been living in your left brain for 30 years, and I'm asking you to live in your right brain." And that sums up how the challenge of acting for me, and which brings up a certain amount of fear, on one hand. I mean, my biggest fear, you could say to me that the head of Paramount, Brad Gray, could come over and say, Alec, screw this JJ guy. You need to produce the next Star Trek film. I'm giving you $190 million. I'd be like, sure, I can do that. But ask me to act in this, and my biggest fear, it was, if I suck, I'm going to have to take myself out and replace myself as an actor and have someone else do it. And that was my biggest fear, that a failure. If I would fail at something that was so alien to me. But no, a challenge is a challenge, and I took it up. And thank God for both Richard, has been so amazing. I've made so much progress under Richard. He's just, every week, Tuesday, I'm in acting class, and I look forward to it so much. He's so amazing. And to Christian is an amazing director, and we had a rehearsal 2 days before I got to shoot, and we watched Band of Brothers, the documentary We Stand Alone Together, and we just sat there, Christian and I, and talked about, look at Lieutenant Winters there, look at what is he thinking, look at the eyes, and we went through all of that, and it just was, wow, I was able to get that, being such a student of military history. I was like, I feel it. I could go to places like that, and as Richard always says, draw those bridges from my experiences to what they were feeling. And I think, and so it is incredibly scary process if it's not something you're born to, because these guys all make it look so easy. I mean, every time I still watch Prelude and go, oh my God, they're so good. So yeah, it's really difficult. But it's also exciting, and when you get success, it's unlike anything I could do on the left side of my brain. So thank you, Richard, and thank you, Christian.
Do we have any questions in the audience for our esteemed panel? Some of you guys must. Yes, sir.
So there's the Star Trek episode, of course, in TOS of Garth Avizar. That character is actually in a real episode of Star Trek, and he goes insane, and Captain Kirk has to stop him. But like, was any of that, like, did you watch that episode of the character? Did any of that influence like what you did, or knowing that character was where it was going to go, that affect in any way how you guys were approaching that character?
Well, yeah, I mean, I probably saw that episode for the first time in 1968. And I wrote my first story about Garth Avizar 25 years ago when I was in law school. And that episode isn't really a particularly great episode. And there's really only 2 times in that episode where you see Garth and you see what he was. But my attitude was, Garth's Kirk's hero.
Right.
James T. Kirk's hero. I mean, we're talking about one of the great heroes in television. And what was his hero? And you see that in the last 45 seconds of Whom Gods Destroy. That seals the deal for me. You see this nobility in this character he's coming out of this haze that he was in, basically. And Kirk he says to Kirk, should I know you, sir? And, I get chills just saying that line. And I was always mesmerized. I said, I need to know who he was. And that's it. And you still, you only see one little aspect of him in Prelude, but both Christian in writing with Axanar with me, and Richard in bringing the character to life, we are delving into who is this man and why is he Kirk's hero. So that's what you'll see in Axanar. You'll understand why.
Somebody back there? Yes, sir.
My question was basically mostly for Kate and Richard. This really stood out to me. Like, a friend posted this on Facebook a couple months ago, and it blew me away. And it was mostly because, I loved you guys on BSG, because you played these very out of the spotlight, gray, shadowy, ethically tilted kind of characters. And then in this, you really brought this insanely high level of class. Star Trek VI really kind of touched on Klingons being this Shakespearean noble kind of thing, and then it just all went away again. And Richard, you brought it back beautifully. I loved it. Loved everything you did with Karn. And Kate, you made all of a sudden, like, there's this Star Trek captain who's very different than anything you've ever seen. She's really classy broad. And but then she says stuff like, "God damn planet, whatever." And you did such a good job of being this calm, classy, educated character who then is capable of slipping into the nitty-gritty. And it was so very different from anything Star Trek's done but so very much in that universe. It was a really strong dichotomy, and I was just wondering if that was done intentionally.
You'd have to ask the writers that question, because I basically said what I was told to say. I mean, so I don't know. What about that, Christian?
Here's a wonderful thing that Kate said to me. When Alec and I approached her after meeting her at Con, and I was like, Alec, please, Alec, please, can we have Kate Brennan? He was like, I'll talk to her. It went something like that. And he's like, yeah, she's awesome, let's try it. When I spoke to Kate about this character, we were both very adamant that she had to be a Star Trek captain unlike the likes of which we have not seen before. And so we said that to Kate, you have to be strong, she's gonna be strong, she's gonna be great, we're gonna write her for you. And Kate said, and it was deliberate, she's being very humble as always, this is the thing she said that was really impressive, and the defect of the writing that we then gave back to her was, she's like, I wanna be strong, but I don't wanna be, and then she went on to say, not like Vasquez from Alien strong, right? We have these kind of, there are now these kind of stereotypes where it goes too far, where it's G.I. Jane, it's this kind of man's idea of strong in a woman's body. And she said, I want to portray a strength in a woman in a way that we women live every day, but that we never see on camera. And I was like, okay, I'll write that.
I forgot I said that. I totally now remember that conversation. I said something I wanted to, like the energy of a queen who holds command by just being in the room. You clearly run the ship without even having to say anything. But when push comes to shove, she's not gonna let anybody shove her around. But she's got the regalness of a queen. That's what I never remember.
Yeah. And yes, Shakespearean, you're absolutely right. I mean, Shakespeare's a big part of Star Trek. And we try to work it in as many subtle ways as we can.
We only have a couple minutes left, so before Rob wraps up and maybe asks one last question, or someone asks a question, a couple of bookkeeping things. First of all, you don't realize that unless you really live around Prelude or Axanar and the team, you don't realize. I know I'm working full time on Axanar right now. I know our co-producer and my lovely lady Diana Kingsbury. Raise your hand, Diana. Diana, who handles all the fulfillment, like if you donated to our Kickstarter, she's the one sending you your perks. She's working full time on it. It's an enormous undertaking. It literally is dozens and dozens of people, and we have others in the audience who I just want to point out real quick. Neil Fisher, co-producer on Axanar, he helped get us our booth here this time. Matthew Hunt, who's an associate producer, Norman Lau, one of our good friends of our production, they're here. So I want to thank everyone because it's very easy. Well, I learned this when I was on the set of Battlestar Galactica back in '08. How important everyone behind the scenes is who you don't see all the time. And we have so many great people behind the scenes. And sometimes it's me who gets all the notoriety or the actors. But everyone from Christian on down to the production assistants, they work so hard. The volunteers who come and work at our booth. So I just want to point that out to you. Also, you see we just have our brand new USS Ares schematic poster you see over there. And if any of you want to come down to our booth and buy one for you, they're half price. You just have to say the secret word, and the secret word is Daystrom, which is a little Easter egg, but I'm not going to say anymore. But if you want it, it's half price. It's $10 down at the booth, plus we got all sorts of other goodies. So they're not. We have to wrap it up.
Is there any question? Last question? Yes, ma'am.
What is the status of your funding?
So we raised $650,000 roughly in our last Kickstarter, which thank you. Which, as I always tell people, we basically get 75% of that because a Kickstarter and Amazon take about 10%, and then you have to set aside about 15% for all your perks. So we wound up with about $500,000, and the first priority on that is securing a soundstage, and we just put in an offer on the most amazing space. Rob saw it yesterday. It's amazing. 17,000 square feet of warehouse space that will turn into tentatively called Ares Studios, where we will shoot Axanar, and then we'll start building the sets. Some of you know we just got John Iacovelli, the Emmy Award-winning production designer of Babylon 5, has joined us, which is so exciting because he's so excited about our project. He was like,
Alec, I've been ignoring you since San Diego because I did not want to be part of a Star Trek fan film. And he goes, and then I watched Prelude, and because I've never been so excited about anything in the last 10 years. So that's exciting, and I can tell you, although I don't have news, I can tell you John Iacovelli picked up the phone and called Robert Blackman, the legendary Star Trek costume designer who designed all the costumes on Star Trek for the last 20 years. And he has not said yes to us yet, but Blackman said, okay, I'll look at it, because Iacovelli said you need to be part of this project. So we're hoping in the next week or so to be able to get Robert Blackman on board to help us with costume design, which would be amazing. But it happens because, you know, from Christian and all these actors and everyone else has been able to produce something that is honestly beyond our expectations. And your expectations now that you've seen Prelude drive us, because we know that's like the floor. Okay, so it can't be any worse than that, and it's got to be much better. So we will have another Kickstarter. It will probably start in February. There'll be, you know, I think we're known for our really cool stuff that we give out. I've had more than one Kickstarter tell me that they're basing their Kickstarter on what we've done. So we love giving out really cool stuff like the patches and the posters and stuff like that. Blu-rays. The Blu-ray for Prelude will be out in about, hopefully, the end of November. Rob has to edit it.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. No, the Blu-ray is gonna be good. As some of you know, I've been doing all the Star Trek: The Next Generation Blu-rays, of which season 7 is out December 2nd, along with a single disc, All Good Things. And there's about, what I did, about 4 hours of new documentaries for season 7. There's so many great things on it.
And also, real quick, I'll say, has anyone read These Are the Voyages books by Mark Cushman? They are the definitive accounts of the original series, making of the original Star Trek. We're doing a Kickstarter. We're running a Kickstarter for Mark because he wanted to get out book 3, the 3rd season. So you can find that Kickstarter online. A portion of those proceeds goes to fund Axanar. And I'm happy to say that Mark Cushman has agreed to write the making of Axanar. Wow. So that is really big news. So that book will be out next year obviously after Axanar comes out. But great things like that are happening, and you're all, what's really exciting is you are all a part of it. This isn't the studio who gives you what they want to give you. This is, you guys come to our booth, talk to us. The actors are all signing autographs at our booth now downstairs, so please come and get their autographs, because that's how we get them to keep coming to these events. Come down and talk to them. You know, they're all there to talk to the fans. We're there. Please come and avail yourselves of us down there and get your poster. We got to go, so ask your question. Go ahead, real quick. Prelude to Axanar, the Prelude to Axanar Blu-ray, you got, if you donated, and you still can donate, you can still donate to our first Kickstarter and get the Blu-ray and the CD, the soundtrack CD. So you can still do that. Ask us at our booth. I'll give you all the information. It's really easy. We've got cards, and we got to wrap it up.
Thank you for coming, everyone.
We love you very much.